Good morning and welcome all to today's webinar. I am Aranza Zugalan, part of the editorial board of BuildUp. BuildUp is Europe's largest international portal for energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. It is a unique community that provides the opportunity to discuss, contribute, and collaborate with other experts in this field. BuildUp aims to bring together stakeholders working in the building sector to reap collective intelligence about energy reduction by encouraging knowledge exchange. Our editorial work is organized around the topic of the month, which allows us to go deeper into a specific theme. Each month, several items are produced as overview and technical articles and infographics, but not exclusively. BuildUp also offers the opportunity to host webinars on all the topics related to energy efficiency. More recently, BuildUp has opened the opportunity to distinguished experts in the field to share their knowledge in front of our cameras in the BuildUp Expert Talks. BuildUp portal shares daily the most relevant events in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energy, but also participates actively in many European events around the year as EPB Center and RIBA Conference, Horizon 2020 Interreg and Cost Action events, Covenant of Mayors, and much more, which with the aim of further disseminating the results and helping to create high-quality media content. BuildUp content is updated daily, reaching around 120 items each month. But BuildUp is not only us. BuildUp is a community, and we invite you to be part of it by becoming a member. You can contribute uploading your own content and promoting your own news, events, or publications. BuildUp will help you to reach a broader audience through our social media channels and newsletter. It is a pleasure to host today's webinar entitled Bringing Circular Skills to the Design and Construction Sector, which is organized by BUS-GoCircular project. In today's agenda, we have 4 presentations aiming to frame the skills topics. Sami Kazemi from Circle Economy will present what are the key elements of circular economy for the design and construction professionals. Martin Breen from the Technological University of the Shannon will present what are the required circular skills in the design and construction. Jan Kronweg from ISO will present how circular skill recommendations and qualifications are used for upskilling. And Ida Ivanova from INEFECT and Sibren Estensma from Building Change will present how is the qualification framework validated. After each presentation, we will launch some questions to the audience through slido.com. A QR code will appear in the screen that you can scan to participate. The questions will refresh in your mobile or computer each time that a question is launched. You can also open slido.com in your computer and type #circularskills to participate. The BUS-GoCircular Consortium is eager to know your opinion on certain topics. Audience is also welcome to send us questions through the platform. These questions will be answered at the end of the presentations in a session moderated by Elena O'Rourke-Potoki, to whom I leave the floor now. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to everyone. So to start this session, we want to know where you're dialing in and to listen into this session about circular skills. So I think we're one slide ahead.
Yes, let's enter all to Slido and answer with a maximum of 2 words, what is your current profession?
And for those of you who are not yet in the Slido, you can use your mobile phone and scan the QR code that you see on the screen, or open another tab on your computer or browser and go to slido.com and enter #circular skills. So we have an architect and a consultant so far. Let's see if there's any other people sharing. Oh yeah, project officer, technologist. So we're seeing quite a mixture. Yeah, 2 architects. We have a majority of consultants now. Yeah, I think that's gives us an overview of who's in the room today. So someone else is typing one last question. and we also have an engineer, so quite a few people related to the world of buildings and skills. So you're in the right room today. So maybe we can go to the next question. So I'm happy to introduce one of our colleagues from the BUS-GoCircular project. So for those of you who are not aware yet of the BUS-GoCircular project, we're looking at what skills people need to have to be able to build circular buildings across Europe and maybe eventually beyond. So I'm very happy to introduce you Sami Kazemi, who will tell us what are the key elements of a circular economy for the design and construction professionals. So Sami, are you on the line?
Yes, hello.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Helena, and welcome everyone to the presentation of today on BUS-GoCircular. I am Sami Kazemi. I am the lead built environment of circular economy. My background is architecture, so I'm so happy to see those architects in the room, and also consultants as well, because we work a lot with the consultants. And we need a combination of all different backgrounds to help us push towards the goals of circular economy and achieving a circular built environment and a construction sector everywhere in the globe, especially in Europe. We all acknowledge that the current system that we are working and we are living is very linear, and the efforts so far in the circular economy from circular economy, the company, and also all the bigger contributors to circular economy is to stop this wasteful and linear economy. We want to move on to a system where respects nature, which stays within the boundaries of our planetary boundaries, and as well respects the health and well-being of the human being, and as well pays attention to all the entities and all the living beings on the planet. By doing so, we need to make systemic changes as to the current linear system, and to do that, we need to upgrade the way we work, upgrade the way we think, and rethink the system, basically. As for the principles of circular economy, we know that it's very promising, and we have solutions. We have current solutions, and we have to think in terms of solutions, how we can valorize products, materials, and keep those materials into the cycle as long as possible. And as well, we want to work with less and almost cut down any extraction of raw materials. So there is going to be the discussions of how we can use with alternative materials, which I'm going to delve into very soon now. Just if you can go to the next slide, please. Sorry, next slide, please. Oh, no. Yes, this. Here in this in the slide, you see what we call it the key elements framework, and we have worked on this framework to identify which are the core elements and which are the 5 enabling elements. So we have 3 core elements, as you can see: prioritize regenerative resources, stretch the lifetime, use waste as a resource. So these 3 core elements are directly dealing with the physical flows and align with other common frameworks related to circular economy. As well as, if we move to the second slide. Yes, here we have the enabling elements, 5 enabling elements that they mainly deal with creating the conditions of removing barriers for circular transition. These elements are design for the future, rethink the business models, incorporate digital technology, team up to create joint value, strengthen and advanced knowledge. So these core elements and the enabling elements together, they help us stretch the lifetime of different parts of the value chain and focus, give us a good indication of where we need to focus and where we can put our solutions and our focus on. These and by doing so, we are stretching the lifetime of products, of materials, and also we're getting a lot of indication of where we have to come in and create new jobs and skills, which we will be dealing with that in the upcoming slides today. These slides, you can see that from the core elements here, we have some job creation and some new skills demand in the circular economy. And here you can see that by prioritizing regenerative resources, we need more skills on people who know how to design with regenerative materials, bio-based materials, as well as secondary materials in the construction chain. We need more courses, we need more training programs, and also professionals who can sit in the design team, who can be part of the design team, and also working towards this goal. Next slide. Yes. Here, another skill that we can identify using this framework is how to use waste as a resource. So we need, in these terms, we need more skills on how to design with the construction in mind, and then at the end, we need, when the building finishes its lifetime, we need more skilled resources to come in, and skilled professionals to come in and work on the deconstruction before the building is becoming deconstructed. They can audit those buildings and submit or provide certification for the materials that are secondary, and they can go from one site, one building, to a second building or a third one. So these are the kind of new skills that we are looking at through this element. And the next, yes, next slide, sorry. Yes, here you can see that one of the enabling skills is digital working, and shifting towards digital solutions and digital platforms. Here we need more jobs that they can and more skills on, especially the construction sector, which is very thirsty and very much in need on digital tools, how we can incorporate these digital tools. So we need more skills on professionals who have knowledge from the built environment sector and construction sector, but as well can sit with the digital professionals, creating softwares, creating solutions. For example, secondary markets, we need digital platform for the secondary material markets. Who is going to do that? So we need more professionals to come and support us there. Or for example, we need some kind of softwares that is going to model the existing building stock for a city, for a region. These are the kind of digital tools that is going to help us in the transition to a circular economy. And of course, next slides are going to delve into more deeper. Martin is going to explain to you more about those skill sets. And by saying that, I pass on to you, Martin. Thank you.
Sorry. Thanks so much, Sami. And we have now Martin from the Technical University of Shannon, and also a colleague from the BUS-GoCircular project. So tell us, what are circular skills and why are they needed for design and construction?
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Martin from the Technical University of Shannon, based out of Ireland. I'll be presenting on what are the circular skills required in the design and construction. Sorry. So beginning, I'll be going through the skills mapping and the results, some of the results that go along with it. So based on the key elements framework as described by Circular Economy above, and using the Prof Track framework, which has been used for other build up skills projects, so some of you might be aware of it, we mapped 58 skills and 38 professions relating to circular economy and multifunctional green roofs, facades and interior elements, which we would go on to map in order to discover the skills gap existing within Europe. And we based BUS-GoCircular on multifunctional green roofs, facades and interior elements. However, this can be applied to any element of the construction industry, so like ventilation or anything like that. And this is an easily replicable process. So going on to look at some of the results. We began the process by collecting freely available continuous professional development courses throughout Europe. This was just to understand the base of what is already existing. So there's 4 examples here from Ireland and the Netherlands, and there are things like BIMSEED in Ireland and Circular Economy for a sustainable built environment in the Netherlands. And we went into detail on what those courses involve and then what skills and professions they relate to. So following on from that, we created our professions. Within the scope of circular economy and multifunctional green roofs, facades and interior elements, we identified many existing and several new and emerging professions. So you can see some of those here. So some of the existing professions that have already been created and illustrated were, excuse me, an architect or a carpenter, and there's many more of those. And some of the new professions that we created were demolition or deconstruction auditor, green public procurer, and green roofer. And they are just a few examples of all of the professions we worked with here. So based on this, we created a list of skills. So some of the skills we identified based on the key elements framework included things like solar systems for electricity generation, design and build for reuse, sustainable drainage systems, and applying material passwords. And again, these were based on the circular economy and multifunctional green roofs, facades and interior elements. So that list of skills is shown here. It's quite small, and if you'd like to take a deeper look at this, it's on our website. But we separated the skills into 3 separate categories. The first is skills relating specifically to the circular economy, and that's the orange box here. And you can see in bold are the key elements, as Sammy shared earlier. And within each one of those, we have our sub-skills. So we have things like bio-based and regenerative materials, applying material passports, and things like that. And then the second category, which is the green box here, is skills not specific to circular economy, but that heavily influence it. And skills we have here are things like modular design and 3D printing and drone use. And then the final red box is to do with circular economy specific to multifunctional green roofs, facades and interior elements. So this is the one that specifically relates to what we were looking at. And you can see there things like insulation installer and heat pump installation. So based on the Prof Track framework, we assigned scores to each one of these skills based on the professions. And as you can see here, 0 is not applicable or no knowledge or skills required. 1 has little knowledge and skill, and then all the way up to 5, which has specific knowledge and problem solving skills. And using this, we were able to gauge the current skills level of professionals within Europe based on professionals, experts we spoke to who marked their skills levels across Europe. And then we were able to, following that, measure the future skills level, which should be reached around Europe. And the gap between those two was the gap we're speaking about here. That's the skills gap that is currently missing. So what did we discover? So we worked with professionals within each country, which allowed us to map the current and future skills levels in each country, as I said, create a common level across Europe. So we have skills levels within each country and then a universal one for Europe. We were able to map the skills gap which exists currently and identify the gaps across all sectors and skills. So as I said, there is gaps existing within all sectors and all skills in Europe. And one example of a graph that we created based on that, and these are all again available on our website. This is an example of an architect, so you can see the architect in the center of the graph, and then radiating out from the center, you have 0 to 5 in those circles. And then the key on the exterior is based on the skills framework, which I showed, our skills tables, which I showed earlier, and where they intersect is the level of skill that is needed for the future of an architect. So this graph can be compared with the current graph to see that skills gap. So what are the circular skills required? So our findings were that across Europe, skills gaps in profession. The gaps we have identified represent vital skills which are currently lacking or missing in all, and all skills are lacking to some extent. So upskilling, training and mentoring must be provided in order to reach a more sustainable construction industry throughout Europe. So there is no country ahead of another, there is no skill that is completely done with upskilling. This is something that needs to be done throughout Europe to different levels, and different skills need to be brought to the same level across Europe for a circular economy to be implemented in the construction industry. So just a question, if everyone wants to go back onto the Slido, what aspects of the results of this mapping do you see as adding the most value? And thank you for listening to me.
Thanks so much, Martin. And then working on the project, I know how much effort went into creating this framework and mapping the skills. So again, use your phone or another browser on your computer to go back to the same Slido. Normally, it should have just automatically changed the question. So we can see that all the people who have so far answered the poll find it difficult to identify the right experts in the field of circular economy, probably because it's quite new, or identify the gaps within your company or industry. We'll just let a few more come through. And I just want to take this opportunity to tell our participants and people watching the webinar today that you can send questions to our different speakers, whether it's Sami or Martin. If something you're interested to knowing more about, just put them in the chat and we'll pick them up in the Q&A session. So don't be shy, just use the chat or Q&A function. I haven't seen any questions yet. It'd be nice to see what you're curious to know more about. I don't see many more answers coming through, so I think with no further ado, I can introduce our next speaker. So I'm very happy to introduce Jan Komwijk from ISSO, based in the Netherlands. And Jan is leading our BUS-GoCircular project. So hi, Jan, and the floor is yours.
Hi, Elena. Thanks for the introduction and thanks for the excellent presentation so far. What I will do in my presentation is that I will lead you through how circular skill recommendations and the qualification that is developed are used for upskilling. And I don't think I have the controls yet. Yeah, now I have the controls. Yeah, thank you. Use of the skill level recommendations. In order to recommend to do proper skill recommendations, there is quite some lag on the line. So I will ask you to go to the next. Yeah, we are using the skill level recommendations within the Build Up Skills Advisor app, where you can find for your sector and for your profession. Next slide. You can find recommendations, and those recommendations are presented in the way of stairways. So you can climb the stair to reach a higher level of skills. And in order to do so, based on the skills mapping, we have created the skills gap analysis. Next slide. In order to help you to climb the stair, we identify first the interest areas, then we do a skills assessment, and based on that you can receive a personalized overview of your skill gaps. Next slide. The next one. So, for example, the skills gap analysis on circular skills. Next slide. You can see that on each of the elements from the key elements framework, a nice visual has been created. For example, prioritize regenerative resources, and you can indicate on what level you think you are performing. For example, as an asset manager, what is your current level of skills with regards to prioritize regenerative resources? Next slide. Then you got the second question. What are your current skills with regards to design for the future? Next slide. What are your skills with regards to incorporation of digital technology? So you see that each of the circular economy key elements are coming back within the slides. Then you see the results of the outcomes. So this asset manager is 56% fit for getting circularity in use, and you can see that there is a big gap with regards to prioritization of regenerative resources. With regards to design for the future, this asset manager is more than fit for purpose, and on the digital skills there is also a skills gap. And what we do within the Build Up Skills Advisor app is that for each of the gaps we are signaling, we give you recommendations to upskill yourself. So the next step on incorporation of digital technology is to learn to be able to do the standard work with regards to the use of digital technology for circularity. We are also working on a dashboard. This one is not yet implemented, it is under development. And in that dashboard, you can see an overview of your company or of your construction team or whatever team you would like to invite to do the skills assessments. And based on that, you get an overview of the people in your team, their current level of fitness with regards to the circular skills recommendations, the professions they have, and you can also send them a reminder to do the personalized skill assessment, just in order to make sure that you have a clear view on what skills are within the team and how can you properly upskill the team, not after a project is done, but preferably before you are going to develop a project in a circular way. I think this is it from my side. For the first part, we will go to the next slide for the poll. And then I will continue with the second part.
So we enter into Slido again, and we are very interested to know your opinion on the added value of skill level assessment. In this case, there are some writing to do, so please proceed.
We can see quite a few participants adding their comments. I guess because we have seen that quite a few of you are working in the construction sector, so we'd be actually interested to know if such a framework is interesting for you in your day-to-day work or your career progression moving towards more circular practices. So we see some people think it's about the long-term learning or understand, yeah, like future career progressions, if I understand correctly. some of the comments and maybe identifying the next challenges for your company or industry. I don't know, Jan, if you have any comments on what the participants are mentioning here.
I'm very happy that they are underlining the thoughts we have as a consortium, what is required for proper upskilling, because becoming circular is something that is quite a challenge for many companies, and preferably you can do that challenge by taking step-by-step improvements. Because if you have done if you have mastered, for example, one of the key elements, then you have more confidence and you are more inspired to master another of the key elements. And by guiding professionals in making decisions around it, we hope that the uptake of circularity within the construction sector can be hugely improved and accelerated, because we have to accelerate if we want to do a proper renovation wave, because without circularity, the renovation wave is a waste of time and money. And also of materials.
That's also true. Yeah, I think there's one more participant typing in, and then you can give us the rest of your presentation, Jan.
Right, I will go on with the topic of the circular skills qualification. When you have the skills mapping, you can see what the gaps are and what the needs are. And to fill those gaps, you need good learning outcomes. And the circular skills qualification we have developed within BUS-GoCircular is giving a practical perspective on required skills for circular in construction. They can be used by countries, by branches, by technology providers to increase recognition of learned skills as a common framework. They have clear learning outcomes, learning outcomes for the development of training, so that if you want to develop a good training program that bridges a certain gap in the framework, you have a very clear identification of the needs for that training program. And last but not least, the framework can also be applied to different fields in construction. Within the project, we applied it for multifunctional green roofs, facades, and inner walls or interior elements, but it can also be applied, for example, to heat pumps or to isolation materials in the applied framework. Next slide, please. Within the circular skills qualification, you can see how the key elements are coming back, and we have translated them into images that fit the construction value chain. You see there are many actors involved, and they have to do their work in a more dismountable and modular way. They have to recognize and measure. For example, if you are going to work with the levels indicators, you have to measure your performance so that your performance can be recognized. And it's also important for circularity to show the difference between traditional buildings and buildings that have been created using the circular principles. The chain collaboration, the value chain collaboration, it shows a linear arrow, but in fact it's a quite complicated and networked dynamic process to go ahead and to realize the objectives. Rethink the business models, because several transition elements need new business models. Use the power of digitization. Use also the possibilities of already existing buildings and installations to stretch the lifetime. And when the lifetime is done, make sure that there is a way to high quality reuse materials and components and so on. And last but not least, strengthen knowledge. We are in transition, so a lot is learned, and we need to learn from each other and also to feed back our lessons learned. Next slide. Within the circular skills qualification, we have designed a series of tasks and subtasks that are guiding you through the key elements. So for example, on the key element design for the future, we have created one task, design for the future, and several subtasks of activities that need to be done within the construction value chain in order to design for the future. So you have to design to reduce waste during production and use. You have to design with materials that enables multiple uses. Behind it, you see numbers, and those numbers are leading you to the harmonized unit of learning outcomes. And that means that unit of learning outcome 26 can be used multiple times in training, while the content of the training is the same. It is used in multiple subtasks. And here you see the acronyms explaining what are the profession groups involved or the occupation groups involved to make sure that this task is properly performed in the market. I have already explained this slide, so I will go on. When you see the unit of learning outcomes, for the unit of learning outcomes, we follow the CEDEFOP definitions. And in the CEDEFOP definitions, you have always knowledge elements. So what knowledge is needed in order to be competent and in order to do a proper skill performance. So the second element are the skills. What are the skills needed to design with bio-based materials? There are quite a number of skills needed to do a proper design while performing this competence. And the competence is that you take the responsibility to design with bio-based materials as an alternative. And in this way, for each of the key elements, detailed unit of learning outcomes are available, and these can be used by training providers or by educational institutes to deliver practical and theoretical upskilling means. Then we are at the next slide, though, Paul, as the closure of my contribution on what is, in your opinion, the added value of the task-based qualification.
So once again, you can go to the same Slido using your phone or another browser on your computer. Yeah, we're seeing a first participant. To prepare proper training, yeah, we see a few more activities happening in the Slido. If you haven't accessed yet the Slido, we'll be interested in hearing more of your opinion about this topic of the task-based qualification. And again, if you have any questions to Sami or Martin or Jan and any of our other panelists, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll pick them up at the end of the session. So now, Jan, that we have a few answers here, what are your takes on the responses from our audience?
Yeah, I think I will use one of the above. It's not so abstract anymore, so it gives better motivation to get going. And I think that is very important goal of BUS-GoCircular. Every entrepreneur that wants to contribute to the future, to circularity, can take a next step tomorrow. And by making the unit of learning outcomes as clear as possible, you can exactly find out what is needed to take that next step, and also to find proper trainings, because that's one thing I did not tell yet. Within the Build Up Skills Advisor app, we are inventorizing training materials and training supply available all over Europe and in several countries. For example, in the Netherlands and Ireland, also a national implementation is done. Those training supply will be connected to the unit of learning outcomes. So if you want to learn one of the new skills, you can directly find the training materials available and dive in. And I also would like to respond to the building blocks, and that's also an important one. If you master one of the skills needed, you can get a recognition in the future that you have mastered that by doing, for example, an e-learning on that skill. And by doing that, you can build up your knowledge step by step or block by block.
And that's quite a nice segue, because at the end of the webinar, we'll talk about our Train the Trainer program with the first session in Prague. I don't know if Jan, you want to say a few words now about it.
No, that's not needed. I think it's a good moment to switch to the next speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan, for this excellent presentation. So I'm very happy to introduce our next two speakers, Iria Ivanova from, in effect, a Bulgarian-based communications company. Would that be correct? Yeah.
Communication on energy efficiency in the building sector and providing training and upskilling activities.
And and we also have Sibrin from Building Changes in the Netherlands. So the floor is yours to tell us about the qualification. How is a qualification framework validated?
Yes, thank you, Helena. I would like to know how we decided to validate the qualification framework. Don't seem to be able to change the slides yet. Now, yes. So a market qualitative research was the chosen method for the validation of the framework, and the approach was an organization of focus groups within all participating countries, with representatives from all stakeholder groups in groups from 2 to 10 people, in a set of interviews and discussions during a moderated meeting. Participants share their opinions, beliefs, and recommendations about the qualification framework and other general topics on circular economy. Next slide shows the variety of stakeholders that took part in these meetings, mostly represented by building industry representatives, along with training and education members, and public officers, product suppliers, and so on. So a great variety. Once the representatives, the participants were introduced, sorry, trying to change next slide. Yes, they were introduced to a set of questions in a poll, aiming to establish a connection to the main topic of circular economy, and to warm up, to serve as a warm up for the later on discussion. Some of the results from the poll questions show that some of the most recognized features of circular economy are the regenerative and efficient use of resources, along with increased lifetime of buildings and building components, and the future-proof building design. While architects and building offices were among the most recognized stakeholders that should be aware of the benefits of circular economy and how it could be best applied. Once the poll questions were answered, a detailed presentation of the circular construction skills qualification framework was made, and after that, a detailed discussion followed in which participants express their opinions and recommendations for the qualification framework. Once all the meetings were conducted, they were the recordings were analyzed and compiled in a report to represent an extract of all shared opinions and ideas, and to serve as a guide for future improvement of the framework, and as a base for the national implementation plan. It was great to see that to the question of what the advantages and disadvantages of the proposed approach and framework are, the responses were that the framework is a unique collection of knowledge on circular economy, along with a high opportunity for application within existing training in sustainable buildings. To the question, what are the main pathways and barriers, participants saw that through existing continuing professional development programs and in-house training courses, as well as higher education, those were the best possibilities to directly apply the qualification framework. Some of the barriers seen are, as already mentioned, outdated legislation and complex educational systems, which could be creating barriers for the implementation. And as to the outcome of the final question, Sabrin will share more with you. That would be from my side. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Ira, if we can go to the next slide, the missing elements. And before we go into the missing elements, I wanted to highlight here how essential it is for a project like this to even ask the question of, what are the missing elements? Because although we've worked hard to bring a consortium together that represents a lot of different countries and industries, we are aware that the only way to get this right is to work with you, basically the audience and stakeholders throughout Europe, and get their inputs, because the only way that this work will have an effect is if we sit down with you and make sure that it reaches its impact in training. So we need to hear from you, is what I wanted to say. Although, even though in technical terms in this particular webinar you are muted, in terms of our process, it's very important to say that you are the opposite of muted. We need to hear from you. We want to hear from you, and we need you to tell us what are the missing elements. And I think the validation process, as Ira lined out, is not a one-off process. It's a continuous process. I think we feel strong that we have validated the essence of this framework, so we are going full steam ahead, but it's a continuous process, and we still need to hear from you. What are we missing? Where do we need some things, and how can we make this even stronger? And we'll get to a question in this regard in a second, but just to highlight what have we heard from you so far in terms of missing elements, and I'm not going into detail of all of them, just to bring out a couple of elements. There are the financial aspects of application of circular models. That's something that is in the framework somewhere, but we need to bring it out even stronger. If you look at maybe companies were used to selling materials, and now they get into the business of leasing out materials. There's a whole different skill set behind that, and we need to make sure that we address that strong enough. And if I bring out the last point here, we are aware that the framework is quite detailed. It's quite a large framework. If you would print the entire thing, it wouldn't fit your screen, and that's a good thing because it's very detailed and thorough. At some points it needs to be even more detailed and thorough. At the same time, to navigate through it, we need to help you as an audience, as a stakeholder. So we're working on ways and guidelines to make that a little bit easier still. And you can see in between that there are other elements that we have heard from you need for further work, and we're still working on those as well. But to make this webinar even more interactive, although you are on mute, we have a Slido question where maybe we can go there now, where we wanted to ask you, if you think about the 8 elements of the framework that was outlined earlier, and you think about your own personal background, or maybe your organization or your region, or whatever you feel most strongly about, in what areas do you expect the most urgent skills gaps that keep you awake at night and need to be addressed in something like this? And so we have outlined the elements down below, and we're asking you now to pick one of those areas, and then we can use that to even sharpen our approach even more to what we're hearing from you as an audience. So let's see what comes in. Knowledge, rethink the business model is strong. Other takers, maybe. And we'll give it a couple of more seconds. I don't know, Helena, how long?
I guess as long as they're coming.
Yeah, I'm also looking at the clock a little bit. So what's very interesting here is that there are the 3 traditional elements that just look at the materials, where do they come from, how long do we use them, what happens after them, but all the enabling elements around them, maybe they are even more important to keep in mind, because they represent also a lot of maybe newer skills that we really need to focus on, and that's being represented here very strongly as well. If I see, just for example, how strong we think the business model stands out, and so that is being addressed in the framework, and it's good to see represented here. So thank you, and maybe on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Sibren. Thank you, Ira. So the BUS-GoCircular project is organizing these trainer programs. So where we'll give you circular economy knowledge for the construction sector. So our first, and then with the aim of once you train, that you'll train other people in your organization or in your network. So the first of these sessions will happen in Prague between the 18th and 19th of January. And you're lucky to know that we have a few more spaces left. So if you're interested to meet other people in the circular economy construction sector and meet people from the consortium, you can scan the QR code and you'll find more information on our website, or you can get in touch with any of our BUS-GoCircular colleagues. And then we will have 2 more in September and November of next year. So if you can't attend it in January, you'll be invited to join us later on next year. And we can move on to the next slide. And we would like to know if such trainer programs are of interest, or would you be interested in joining such webinars in the future? So you know the drill, same Slido deck? Yes, and a resounding yes from the audience. Maybe a few more people who will give us some insights. I can't see how many people have answered the poll, but at least it's good to know that at least one person is interested. So maybe. Now, if the participants could unmute themselves, but that's not possible today, it'd be interesting to know why you're on the fence. But yeah, nobody's from the outset saying no to joining these training programs. I'll just give it 1 more minute for the last couple of participants to enter their answers. But yeah, I think beware there maybe, but I guess it's probably a question of time and capacity. And we'll now go straight into the Q&A session. So we have a question for you, Sami. I don't know if you can hear me. So we have Emily who's asking, how do you see the workforce in this ecosystem of new digital tools and what we commonly call the blue-collar workers? You're on mute.
A very good question there, and it's always a concern when we are always discussing about technology and how we can achieve a technology for good. Obviously, if we don't have the human professionals running those digital tools, so this is not going to be possible. We need professionals who are aware, as human beings, who are aware of those tools. So the human force will be designing those tools, running and operating those tools, and of course, at least for the time being, machine can, and we hope never, because this is why we want to use and emphasize on tech for good of the humanity and the planet. And those professional skills will be the brains behind designing those tools and engaging. And of course, the machine and tools can are a tool, and they can be used to enhance those jobs. But of course, we need reporting. We need to use the tool, assess and run assessments, or facilitate our secondary. For example, we talked about the secondary material marketplaces that is going to be used. But of course, there's going to be professionals who need to be involved in that and use those materials in a human way. So we are creating, and if you want to see, there's a shift in where the attention and where the skill sets are moving, but it's not about removing the human force and human professionals. And of course, we need that. We are designing buildings for human beings, for the occupants. So of course, those elements and those aspects will forever stay. And it's just a matter of shifting towards a new direction. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, it's always about being human-centric. So thank you very much, Sami. Being conscious of time, I'm just going to group two questions from the audience together for Martin. So we have one question about what is the time frame you think you need for the penetration of these skills proposed in the current EU workforce? Martin, if you have any, and there's also a similar question about how to connect people interested in working in circular construction with the people in the field and sort of bridge that gap with the necessary skills.
So I think that's down to the training and who is involved in the training. So over the next year at least, and then further on from that, there's training material being created that should be valid for both people in the design phase and the construction phase. So it should incorporate everyone in the construction industry as well. It's important to note that while we say there's gaps in every profession, not every professional needs to be an expert in every element of every skill we've identified. So within every team, there should be an expert in every skill. However, everyone doesn't have to be an expert in every skill, if that makes sense. So I think it's important to kind of share knowledge and create a skilled workforce based on that. So yeah, it's just based on the training that we're now creating. I think that's the important answer there.
Thanks so much, Martin. Because we have 1 minute left. We still have more questions from the audience, but I guess maybe we can send them to the panelists and we can answer maybe bilaterally after the session. So if you give me the next slide, I wanted to let you know that the BUS-GoCircular project has a Twitter account, a Facebook account, a LinkedIn account. So just follow us to be updated about the different phases of the project. If you scan the QR code, you'll see our very nice website. So just stay in touch. We'll be organizing more events around what we have learned from the project. And it's 12 o'clock, and I want to wish you thank you for joining us today, and have a good rest of the day. Yeah, Sylvain is saying goodbye also.
Thank you, Helena, for
Nice.
hosting us through this.
And thanks to everyone, and thanks to all our speakers today. Quite interesting presentations and a nice overview of the project. And here you see the list of the partners.
Yeah, and a special thank you for all involved in this teamwork. Excellent job. Thanks a lot. And
Thank you,
enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.